All right, da-la-da-day, da-la-da-da-day, hey, it's a New Jack Swing coming at you. We're back with Tom Monteleone. We have so much to discuss and so little time, so we have choices.
Yes.
Either we can try to cram in as much as we can and speed talk, you know, kind of like Daffy Duck-it, or we'll just have to have you back almost every week.
Well, then we're going to have to meet at a different city and a different convention every week, right?
That's true, that's true. Though the Horrifying's been a fun weekend, though. It's been a really cool weekend. And at any time, you can see people just like walking behind your head. That's how wide open it is at this convention.
It was a zoo, but actually, I'd much rather have a zoo than you know, an empty field.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Great.
You don't want to hear crickets at a horror convention.
Well, I was at one in God, it was like 4 or 5 years ago in Worcester, and it was the first year they did it. It was called Rock and Shock, and they did it in this civic auditorium downtown Worcester. And they did it the same weekend. Some huge event was going on. Nobody showed up. They had rock and roll bands. And they had horror people in this thing. That's what it was supposed to be.
Okay.
And we're in this huge civic center with like 200 vendors and all tables and everything. It was so quiet, you could hear the footsteps of the vendors walking around the concrete floor. I mean, it was like nobody was there. The vendors were all talking to each other, you know, echoes across this big place. And Friday night, we're sitting there, and honest to God, there might have been 18 people in this huge place. And around 10 o'clock, it was about 8 o'clock. We're supposed to close at 10. All of a sudden we hear this bing, like these generators going down. All the freaking lights go out in that place, right? It goes completely black. And nobody says anything for about 10 seconds. And all of a sudden you hear this one guy, one vendor in the corner says, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Not only are there no people, turn the lights out. It was by far the worst convention I've ever been to. It brought new meaning to the word horror show.
Well, you know, you need to have something towards the bottom so that you can measure everything else.
Yes, that's true, Sensei. Where there are no valleys, there could be no mountains. Right?
Oh, okay. Let's throw the teacher stuff this way. Okay, let's do that. So, I'm actually surprised you didn't speak up just to say, you know, while everything was dark. Is that your hand? You know, because I know you. But now, speaking of senseis, we definitely have to talk about this.
Yeah.
Your Borderlands Bootcamps. This is something that. You know, as a writer and everything else, we could go through your resume for hours. But one of the things you've done, and you always downplay this, I know, like, I've yelled at you about this. Yeah. You always downplay it, is that you've really become a mentor to generations of new writers coming up. I mean, I talk to guys all the time that say, Tom taught me that. And a lot of it comes from your Borderlands Bootcamp.
Yeah, it's really kind of gratifying, because we didn't realize what we were doing when we got it started. My wife and I, Elizabeth and I edited this anthology series called Borderlands, and the last volume that we did, we were getting a lot. We got like over 1,700 submissions. We got a lot.
1,700?
1,700.
How many from the same guy?
There were 4 or 5 guys that would send you 7 or 8 stories, you know, that you would remember, and because you'd see their names so much. And you're trying to pick 20 good stories out of that. And it got to be overwhelming, because we had a good reputation for the anthology, and just got too many. I mean, there was no theme to the anthologies in any original story you want to come up with.
So you didn't even close it down where you say, you know, within these parameters.
No, because a lot of times when editors do anthologies, they call up all the usual suspects, and they get at least 10 of the 20 slots with people they know and stuff like that. And we never did that. We just it was always wide open. Anybody could send anything. And Elizabeth noticed, she says, you know, a lot of the stories that we reject they're all making the same mistakes. Yeah, either they don't understand dialogue, or they have no idea how to end a story, or anything like that. And she says, why don't we do a boot camp? Why don't we see if we could get people to show up? So we started advertising in Cemetery Dance, and we got David Morrell, he wrote First Blood.
Wow.
He's Rambo's dad, in case you don't know. He invented Rambo, and he was one of our instructors. We had Paul Wilson, who did the Adversary Cycle, Richard Chismar, who was the editor of Cemetery Dance, and we had, let's see, who else was there? Ginger Buchanan, who was the editor-in-chief at Berkeley Books. So we had really good instructors, you know, for that first one. And we brought 24 writers in. And they came in on Friday night, and they all looked like they had just been caught in the prison, you know, searchbelight.
How did the writers get in?
Well, they had to send samples, writing samples, and we picked the best 24 out of the, you know, all the applications we got. We got like 80 people that wanted to do it.
Gotcha.
Now, we didn't have any plan. We didn't really know what we were doing. Okay, we were trying to figure, well, what do you think will work? You know, what are we gonna do with them for all weekend? So Friday night we did this. We did this thing where they came in and they were sat in this little room, and each instructor gave like 10 minutes on their topic. Each instructor covered a different aspect of what good writing is.
Right.
One guy did plot. One guy did character. Another guy did dialogue. And then the other poor schmuck got grammar and syntax and, you know,
punctuation.
All the really interesting shit, you know, like, and
your exclamation point in you.
Yeah, pacing, you know, transition, you know, all that weird shit. So anyway, they each talked about what they were going to do and what they were going to look for in their stuff. Because before they came, I forgot to tell you this, we made everybody send in their what they wanted to workshop over the weekend, and that we got that in like October. And we printed copies of all that. We sent it to all the all 24 people in the workshop got 23 other manuscripts.
Okay.
And they had a line edit, and they had to critique everybody else's stuff. So they had a couple of months to do that.
Well, I mean, can I just say real quick that I know a lot of people who've been through the boot camp, and they all say the same damn thing. They say, like, within the first 24 hours, they cry like a prison bitch.
Yeah.
They just cry. They're in a flood of tears. But when they leave, they really feel,
They feel transformed. And I mean, I don't mean that in some, praise Jesus, nothing like that. It's that they really have learned something over the weekend. A lot of them, a lot of these people come and they have never had anyone else ever read their stuff. You know, they've sat there and they've been writing in their little...
Oh, really? So you're not even talking about like guys who have a couple things out. You're talking about really
some really new people, or people that have written a lot of stuff but have been afraid to show it to other people, or they've only showed it to mom, or their wife or something. And that's really different. And what we do after we have that intro, we also have them send a little sample, like the first page of something else they've written. And we do this great gig. It's called Bookstore Browser. We bring in this lady a friend of Elizabeth's, who's in radio. So she's got a really good voice, and she can cold read. She can just grab something and read it. Okay. And so we have them. The idea is that you're in a bookstore, you pull a book off the shelf because it looks interesting, and you read the first couple of paragraphs, and you decide whether or not, wow, this sounds like something I'd like to.
Oh, that's a pretty cool test.
Yeah, and now we do this one anonymously, so nobody knows whose stuff we're reading. And they're all in there together. Nobody knows each other. They're all looking at each other like, who's going to mug me first? You know, they're all really scared. And Tamara gets up and starts reading, this stuff. And we all say, okay, as soon as you've heard enough, either you raise your hand. And that can mean you want to buy it, or you want to throw it across the room and go bite your cat. Whatever. You know what I mean? So...
okay.
So they feel, this kind of breaks the ice, and they feel, since it's anonymous, they can critique and they can say crappy things about it. Because a lot of these opening paragraphs are just clumsy and stupid and dull, and they don't know how to pull the reader in. So it's a really cool exercise, not only to just teach them how important the opening of a narrative is, but also it gives them a little bit more juice about being honest in their critiquing. Okay, then we do that.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to break for a commercial real quick, because I also want to talk to you about your Idiot's Guide. Okay. And I mean that as a compliment. Yeah. So we'll be right back with the Funky Werepig and Tom Monteleone right after this.
It's time to get Amish with this week's book choices. The Funky Werepig suggests you check out A Host of Shadows by Harry Shannon, published through Dark Regions Press and available through most online stores. And our guest, Tom Monteleone, recommends Shamrock Alley by Ronald Malfi, available from Medallion Press and most literary outlets.